Good evening and welcome. This is a meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Halton District School Board for Wednesday, the 11th of December. I'm reading the wrong date, for January 22nd, 2025. Given the first action on the agenda is the election of the new chair, I will chair the meeting until such time as a new chair is elected or acclaimed. And at that time, I'll be pleased to hand over the balance of the meeting to the new chair. In accordance with the Ontario Regulation 46397 and guidelines effective February 1st, 2021, HDSB promotes community engagement and participation by having processes in place for members of the public to ask questions. A Google form was attached to the agenda, distributed in advance of the meeting, and is also posted on the HDSB SEAC webpage. Questions posed during the live stream of the meetings of SEAC may be answered during the meeting, particularly those related to agenda items, or at the following meeting at the discretion of the chair. For efficiency, multiple questions received that are similar in nature may be grouped together at the discretion of the chair or the vice chair. Questions will not be attributed. A notation will be made that multiple people ask the same question, and any questions that contain language that is hateful or discriminatory will not be considered. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Katie for roll call.
Thank you. Kate Lombacher, Association for Bright Children. Amanda Winch, Autism Ontario.
Present.
Jennifer Laguerre, Autism Ontario.
Present.
Sierra Kernick, Community Living Burlington.
Here.
Melissa Dockeray, Easter Seal Society. Sophia Siddiqui, Halton Down Syndrome Association. Aaron Sproul, Voice.
Present.
Katie Schleifer, Member at Large, present. Trustee Ahmed.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Baxter.
Good evening.
Trustee Oliver. Trustee Zhang.
Good evening.
And Superintendent Ruddock.
Good evening.
Principal Spruan.
So I'm here for him. Stacey Farrell, the Vice Principal for Special Education Services, stepping in for Conan Spruan.
Great, thank you.
And before we dive into our agenda, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our newest member, Sierra Kernick, for Community Living Burlington. Welcome, Sierra.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which Halton District School Board is situated on the ancestral treaty and title lands of the Anishinaabe Ojibwe Michizogig Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Michizogig territory in the past and present continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land. Now moving on to the election of the SEAC chair and vice chair. We are going to start with the selection of the chair for the 2025 calendar year. A nomination form was circulated in advance, and regretfully we did not have any nominations through that initial process. So at this time, I will open the nomination to the floor and ask each SEAC member if they would be willing to accept the nomination for chair. We will then, following the election or acclamation of the chair, repeat that process for vice chair. So this first question, I will ask Kate Lombacher, do you accept the nomination? In Kate's absence, we will not put her name on the floor. Jennifer Laguerre.
No, thank you.
Amanda Winch. Sierra Kernick.
No, thank you.
Melissa Dockery. Sophia Siddiqui. Erin Rupel has sent her regrets. Aaron Spruill.
I regretfully decline.
Katie.
Decline. Thank you.
Kaja has sent her regrets this evening. Trustee Ahmed.
I respectfully decline.
Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. I would be pleased to put my name forward.
Thank you. And Trustee Zhang.
Decline. Thank you.
Thank you. So through that process, I thank Trustee Baxter for accepting the position of Chair of SEAC. And at this time, we will look for a Vice Chair. And perhaps some things to consider in the role of Vice Chair is that it is really to support the Chair when Carol would be unable to attend. We are having some conversations around the flexibility of the Vice Chair not needing to be in person in the event that Carol's not able to attend a given meeting. So we have a little bit more flexibility here than what we believe we have with the Chair of SEAC, so maybe that will factor into your thinking. The Vice Chair is also invited to participate in a very brief, about 15 minutes tops, meeting each week to debrief or plan for the agenda. Again, that's to support the chair, so it's not an obligation to come, but an invitation to join that conversation. So a really small role, and hoping that we have someone that might be interested in taking that on. So at this time, I'm going to turn over the floor to Carol to take over the rest of the chair role.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Reddick. So I will lead the process to ask each member of the committee to indicate their interest in standing for the role of Vice Chair. So we'll start with Kate Lambacher.
I'm afraid I can't come in person on Wednesdays without transportation, so I cannot put my name forward.
Thank you. Jennifer, is everyone here? Jennifer Laguerre.
Laguerre, yeah, that's right. Also going to have to decline on the for the same reason.
Thank you. Sierra Kernick.
I will pass. Thank you.
Melissa Dockery. She's not with us. Sophia's not here, right? Erin Rupel. So Aaron Spruill.
I respectfully decline.
Thank you. Katie Schleifer.
Yes, if there are no other people who would be willing to put their name forward.
You'd like me to continue through the list? Yes. Okay. Okay. We have regrets from Kaisa. Trustee Ahmed.
Respectfully decline. Too much on my plate right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Zhang.
Decline. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we did not hear any other candidates. So if it's okay, I would be pleased to announce. Thank you again for serving the role, Katie, as our vice chair for the coming year.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to item 1.4. We will move to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any modifications or amendments that need to be made to the agenda? If so, please indicate your wish to speak in the chat box. Okay, none being seen. Would anyone like to move a motion to approve the agenda?
I move the motion.
Thank you. Would anyone like to second this motion? Yep. Trustee Baxter, thank you. So none being seen, is there any opposition to the agenda as it stands? If you oppose the agenda, please indicate that now. Okay, none being seen, the agenda is approved unanimously. The next is the item 1.5, the approval of our December 11th, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? All right, none being seen. Would anyone like to move a motion to approve the minutes?
Aaron Sproul will.
Thank you, Aaron. Would anyone like to second this motion? Trustee Baxter, thank you. Is there any opposition to the minutes as recorded? If so, please indicate that now. Okay, none being seen, the December 11th, 2024 meeting minutes are approved unanimously.
So we are going to just rearrange the agenda slightly and move into, is that item 2.2? Or should we do the discussion? Okay. So if it's okay with everyone, we'll just rearrange a little bit and move into section 3.0, which is our SEAC discussion and question period. If there are any questions or items for discussion, or any topics they'd like anyone would like to raise, please raise your hand through the chat.
So one question I'd like to invite to the group, or an opportunity I'd like to invite to the group, is in the past we have benefited from association presentations. It's been really good from a board perspective, to learn from our associations, but also making those connections across associations. So if you're interested and willing to do one, whether it's the next meeting or sometime later in this school year, feel free to make a comment now or an offer now, or if you want to think about it, you can always reach out to Laura to let her know to put you on an upcoming agenda. So I open that up if there's anybody interested and willing in doing an association presentation.
So we'll move now down to section 4, starting with section 4.1, our superintendent's report. Superintendent Reddick, go ahead.
All right, so we have our sports festivals days coming up. These are 2 days that are in partnership with Special Olympics Ontario on February 5th and 6th. And in fact, due to such popular demand, a third date was added. So it's February 4th, 5th, and 6th now. They're hosted at the Mattamy National Cycling Centre in Milton. 9:30 to 1 p.m. If you're interested in dropping by all means, I'd happy to make those arrangements. 11 o'clock is around the sweet spot in terms of the kids have all offloaded, started some activities, and before they sit down for lunch and board the buses again. It's a pretty incredible experience to see this event. So by all means, I'd love to see you there. Grade 8 to 9 transitions over the next number of months. The transition plans for students moving from grade 8 to 9 will be well underway, and these plans may include meetings with secondary staff to discuss intentional timetabling strategies to support the students' school visits, and we really invite families to work very closely with staff to ensure the best possible transition to secondary school. And then I'll just finish this last one, Kate, before I go to your question. At a recent board meeting, trustees asked school board staff to conduct focus groups to gather student voice on their experiences with racism, discrimination, and hate, as well as to gather feedback on the board's response to these incidents. You may have seen or received letters regarding focus groups for anti-Palestinian racism, anti-Arab racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and transphobia. The research department is also interested in capturing the voices of our students with disabilities as part of this initiative to understand their experiences with hate and discrimination. And so in order to do so, the research team will consult with SEAC, as well as capturing your voices with regards to anti-ableism and hate and discrimination. So more information to come on that. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Kate, go ahead.
Sorry. So I had a few questions around the 8 to 9 transition, and I will admit to having a hat in the ring in that I have a child who's about to transition from grade 8 to 9. And specifically, I would like to talk about and ask some questions about transition from out of board into board from grade 8 to 9, and some of the challenges that I'm about to face that I've been through before, and that I do get questions about, both from people transferring from outside of HDSB, from another public board or even a Catholic board, or from private, because we do have quite a few people in our community who withdraw their children from public school and elementary because they feel they're not getting adequate support for their needs, but they want to transition back in high school, which does tend to be an easier fit for many children. And I would like to understand which parts of the challenges of the process of coming from out of board are a result of ministry regulations and which are a result of board policy, because it is really difficult to support people through this. And I find it difficult, even though I know most of what's going on and I've done it before, I still find it like I'm about to have to launch into it, and I know it's going to be hard. So when a student comes with known needs, identified needs, even if they have been identified within HDSB in the past and the child has already had an identification, an IEP with HDSB in the past, they need to go through IPRC again, particularly if they've been out of board for, I believe it's 3 years. Their placement and identification is basically poof, gone. And if they're coming from an external board, moving into the district, there is not an automatic transition of their a sort of an equivalent placement coming from an external board into HDSB. And because there are some specific placements in high school that are dependent on IPRC, it can be incredibly difficult for families to understand how to ensure that their children are starting at the right high school, identified that they have correct transportation options and so on, because it can be difficult to get IPRC sometimes until October or later. When I went through this last time, we got a rush IPRC at the end of September and a courtesy placement, which we were very grateful for. But this is causing a lot of stress for parents, and they don't understand how to navigate it. They don't understand why, if they've already had an identification, sometimes with HCSB, why they have to sort of be pre-approved in order to get their children placed in what they see as the most likely outcome of IPRC. And overall, it's just incredibly stressful on top of already needing to navigate that transition. So I would like to understand, is there a better way to help parents who are going through a board transition between 8 and 9 to navigate the special considerations, understanding them where to be directed, because in our case, we kept getting bounced back and forth between the secondary school and what they called the home school that my child did not attend, who wanted nothing to do with us because we didn't attend that school, and the high school said you have to go through your home school, and the home school said you had to go through your secondary school, and they did a little dance back and forth, and nobody would tell us. Like, the buck just wouldn't stop with anyone, and we ended up having to enlist the help of the wonderful head of special education at the secondary school, who finally managed to help us sort this out. But it is a nightmare process, and I would love to understand which parts of it are because of regulations by the ministry. What can we do to make this easier and more streamlined for parents who are having to transition their children with identifications from out of board?
Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing your experiences, Kate, and certainly I'm sorry to hear that was a challenging process for you when you were going through that with your last registration. So our board set criteria for identifications and placements, so it does vary from board to board. So an identification in one school board is not necessarily the same as an identification in another school board. So there is no ministry standard, and boards are left to make their own criteria. So that's why if you're transitioning from one school board somewhere else in the province or in the country, that you do need to initiate that process. And similarly, for if you're out of board, it's really just you're returning to the school board from a private school, having previously been identified in Halton. It really is just a semantics, but a required process that's laid out. I can't be sure if that's a board policy or a board practice or a ministry. I'd have to get back to you on that. But really, the best course of action is to register with your home high school. So not your home elementary school, but your home secondary school, and connect with the head of special education in your home secondary school. And that individual will assist you in navigating the process. That individual will connect with special education services. If a psychoeducational report needs to be reviewed to verify whether a student meets criteria, and then would be handed off to the school with that placement. So really the key is connecting not with the home elementary school, but the home high school and that special education team, and that team will support families through the process.
That was what worked for us eventually, but I don't believe that all the secondary schools know how to manage that, and that where that responsibility lies, because we did get bounced back to the home school that we didn't attend. And specifically, I understand it's sort of difficult to hold an IPRC before the child is actively enrolled. But if we registered in January, as we did, 6 months, plus, we still had to just wait until the child is actually in school for sometimes a month, 2 months before IPRC will meet. And that's a lot of unknown and instability for the family if the placement can't be verified and it's an interim placement. When even if you're registering almost a year ahead of time, there's no opportunity to review those things or to go through those processes in a way that would make it easier for the family to know that those placements decisions had been made, even after the registration has occurred. Even if it's occurred all the way in January, before the September transitions taking place, they won't touch it until IPRC can be convened after the child is already in school.
And so that is a process piece that we cannot circumvent. We cannot go to IPRC for students who are not active in our system. So while we may have a registration, students sit in what we call pre-reg, and our system does not allow for us to go to IPRC for students who are not active in our system. But
so that's
we
a ministry.
We do secure placements for students who meet criteria without going to IPRC. So we don't want our students to have to start in their home high school and then transfer to a secondary gifted cluster, for example. I'm assuming that's what we're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. But I think in general, if there is a specialized placement.
So our only other special education placement in a secondary school is CPP.
Yeah.
And we do what we call direct entry, much like we do for our students who participate in the gifted clusters. We read the reports before they're active in the system. We confirm that they meet criteria. We allow them to attend that placement. And then when the IPRC meeting occurs, usually in October, then we formalize that placement. But we are very intentional and careful that we don't force kids to start in one school only to change their schools very shortly thereafter once we follow the IPRC process.
And I think that's the anxiety that parents are having, is that because they're told it's interim and pending review, that there is an anxiety there of parents not feeling like they're waiting to see if it will stick. And really to me, it's, can we provide some more concrete information? Because I know what I'm doing this time, so I'm not worried about me, but I get inquiries from others as well who are trying to navigate the same thing, and I'm trying to tell them, since I've been through it, what to do. But the website, it's impossible to find anything about coming from out of board into grade 9. It just is not possible. At least if it's there, I can't find it. It is not clear how to manage that if you're coming from out of board and what to do. There's no steps, and if you're not engaged with the homeschool, there's no one there to guide you with what to do.
So thanks for that feedback, Kate. We're about to overhaul our website and launch a new one. So that's really good feedback for us as we rebuild that site. And Stacy is on the call, and I'll ask Stacy to take this reminder back to our secondary special education heads as we start to navigate these processes through the winter and spring. So ensure that this process in terms of supporting entry of students from out of board is top of mind for them. So thank you for that feedback. Erin.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to provide feedback quickly on the other end of things. I'd say that the experience that I had personally, and I've heard from other people in our association. We have lots of other folks in voice who are in the same position, who have been like transitioning from high school within the board works really, really well. And hadn't thought to mention it, but since it was on the agenda, I just wanted to say that our experience has been exceptional. Honestly, felt really well supported by the special education team. So shout out to Milton District, because they've been wonderful, and they're very proactive in addressing questions and issues, and so I just want to say that what you're doing in that area is working really well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. And we'll be sure to pass on that shout out to MD. I see Ian is here, so I'll flip it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. So we will move back to section 2, item 2.1, which is our annual accessibility report. We have Ian Gadet, the Superintendent of Facility Services, with us here this evening, and Deb DuBois, the General Manager of Human Resources. So I will hand it over to Superintendent Gadet. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yes, it looks good. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. So Deb sends her regrets. She had a death and a funeral to attend of a close friend this evening, but we did work on this presentation together, and we both co-chair the Accessibility Coordinating Committee. Pleased to do that work with her, and I'm pleased to present this report this evening. So this is the annual accessibility status report for 23-24, which supports and reflects the objectives of the HDSB multi-year accessibility plan that was laid out for 5 years from 2022 to 2027. So we're a few years into this. So this annual update is intended to describe the process by which the board will identify, remove, and prevent barriers for persons with disabilities, review recent efforts of the board to remove and prevent barriers for persons with disabilities, describe the measures the board has taken. This is our annual report, and this has gone through admin council. We're presenting here to SEAC this evening, and then we will take this to the board, I think February 6th. And it is intended to provide an update, and also this helps make the plan available to the public. So summary of action items, we'll cover the key topics, which is policy and procedure, training and education, employment, information and communication, the built environment, and actually I deleted the section on membership because we didn't change anything on membership. We did an outreach a number of years ago and gained some membership with lived experience. And so that section was actually removed, but I apologize, I forgot to remove it from the summary here. So in general, some policies and admin procedures that were updated was recruitment and accommodations, as well as accessibility planning, and elevator rescue was also reviewed. In terms of training and learning, we do accessibility awareness for new employees, as well as a review of that every 5 years. OHRC and OADA working together for new employees is reviewed every 3 years and was completed. We worked with our purchasing department and implemented some, I'll say, broader practices to ensure training of our service providers across, all service agencies, all of our vendors in accessible customer service standards and the Human Rights Code. And we also worked with library services has provided accessible formats of novels and other reading materials via the Sora platform. And so this helps to support our student learning needs. Best practices guides are now available for staff on the internet to increase their awareness of AODA and supports when arranging meetings. We've been working on accessibility in our playgrounds, and I've been pleased to see many communication boards in our schools. The pilot has been successful, and we're now expanding into other locations. We've also done training and learning for assistive technology that support our EAs on board-wide PD days. And I'm not certain if this was done before, but certainly there's been a targeted focus across our 5 service providers for student transportation around customer service standards, sensitivity training, and diversity training for the drivers. From an employment perspective, we continue with staffing and recruitment accommodations, as well as try to offer accommodations for those seeking employment and those with needs for interviews. And very pleased that our board has supported mental health first aid training for all people leaders, and that's been completed across all school sites. From an information and communication perspective, we are AA compliant, and we continue to monitor that. But as you heard, we will be updating our board website platform. There are resources available for all staff on the internet regarding AODA. And we've started to work, again, more explicitly with purchasing department to support criteria within our RFPs for ODA compliance, and that has spilled over into library services as well, and in the services that they provide. We always seek feedback regarding accessibility, and so there is a link on our board website, and if we do receive an email to that account, that goes to Deb, and we problem solve and circulate that so we can address the issue that's identified. And then we've also implemented Google Workspace as a plug-in tool that helps all staff. It's available to all staff to scan documents for accessibility compliance as we navigate our online world especially. From a built environment perspective, the website link is included there to our school construction projects website, but in particular, we've been focused on universal washrooms, door operators, elevator upgrades, outdoor space improvements, many sensory rooms, and overhead lifts. And we've done great work with Lynn Goodwin, who's no longer, I think she's officially retired now, around our library sunken floors. We've been infilling these to make them accessible rather than, putting railings up to minimize the danger associated with the open steps. So did some great work with Lynn to help identify those and remove some barriers in our libraries. And it's not explicitly noted here, but we are working on significant accessibility projects at Burlington Central as well as Milton District High School. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or feedback for Ian? Please go ahead and raise your hand.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Thanks, Ian. I had a question, and maybe it's not for you to answer, maybe it's just a general question for the room, but I love seeing additions like communication boards and playgrounds and in schools. I think they're really, really helpful as a parent of a nonverbal child. Is there anything in the board that helps educate people who aren't in this space to understand why we have those additions and how you can use them as a tool for maybe neurotypical families, neurotypical kids, to interact with kids who might need those access to those kind of things?
That is a great question, Katie, and I honestly don't know the answer to that question. This has really been the passion project of Christine Howard, our manager of speech and language pathologists, and her team. I will ask Christine that question and get back to you. Because that's a very good point. It's not just about our students, not our nonverbal students communicating out, but how do their peers interact with them?
Right, and I'm just speaking from personal experience because my son is back in a mainstream classroom now, and I think there's an education that needs to go along with that. Like, my son knows how to use his device, his EAs know how to use it, and his teacher as well, but sometimes it sits within that kind of vacuum. And I love seeing it normalized, and there has to be an education around it, and awareness, because then it gets the whole community involved, and it's no longer like a thing, it's just natural. And so I'm curious about that, and thank you.
Stacey, do you have a better answer than I provided? I'll turn that over to you.
I don't. I know that I don't think we have a purposeful education strategy outside of the students and their core team who would access a communication device or the communication boards. What I want to say is I'm so glad you asked that question. So to this committee, I presented the visible values work that we're doing in problem solving, community pathways. So there's a lot of CP and then a third initial things in my life. And part of that 2-year plan is in our second year, working with our elementary feeder schools that feed into our CPP programs around how do we make what we value so much about these amazing students, how do we make that visible? So when you walk into the space, and that question is, I'm going to add that, if it's okay with you, to part of that work from when we're working with our elementary schools, because what a great question. And I think that platform, or that visible values, which is also tied to our SIPSA work, is a great one option. I think there should be multiple entry points, but it is one option that I think we can leverage and turn into that visible values piece. Because the point of that is we need to pull back the curtain, and everyone needs to understand and celebrate the joy that a lot of our students bring us. But how do we make that visible so it's not so insular? So actually, I just wanted to appreciate that question, and I'm going to take that and actually work that into that work that we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. Are there any other questions or comments for Ian before we let him? Yeah, go ahead.
Ian, I wonder if you want to make a plug for the committee, knowing that we still do not have a representative from SEAC. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit around the commitment of that committee and when you meet, where you meet, how much of a commitment it is, et cetera.
Absolutely. I'd love to put in a plug. So the committee does great work. We've done a good job of getting a good cross-section of the organization, as well as engaging with our public partners, parents and stakeholders that have lived experience, staff that have some lived experience. And at one point we did have a student, but I think we lost the student through transition. But certainly we'd love to have a SEAC rep to come, I'll say collaborate with the group and help explain their perspective and add additional dialogue and diversity to the Accessibility Coordinating Committee. We meet 4 times a year. We've done, I think what we've gotten into as a ritual is 3 virtual meetings. So they're quarterly. And 3 of them will be virtual, and the last one is intended to be on site at a school where we can experience either our latest build and what our latest school has to offer, or go to an older facility that we have upgraded so that we can talk about the pros and cons, where we've done well to upgrade the facility and where there's still some opportunities to do better.
Thank you, Ian. As a trustee who sits on the committee, I'm always thrilled to go to meetings, whether they're in person or virtual, because it's a great window into how all the departments work together to solve problems, centered around student need, which is really great to see. But I would really encourage anyone on the committee who can make the time to join the Accessibility Committee, because I echo what Ian said. Definitely would benefit from having some lived experience from this group. So please consider it and let us know if you think you can do it. And the meeting dates are all set in advance, so we can also share that. And you can check your schedules to make sure that works. Sierra, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. And you know what? I am not sure if you're the right person to ask this question for. This is also my first day on the committee. So my role with Community Living Burlington is their connections coordinator. So I've been going in to the high schools here in Burlington and connecting with families who have students that are going to be graduating high school soon, and starting to connect them with external resources, as well as providing some workshops for the students to gain some certifications and skills before graduating. One of the things that I have encountered, and I was just curious about this barrier potentially in regards to co-op opportunities for students. So in the Community Pathways programs, many students are able to find placements out in the community. Some students being grouped with, maybe 2 or 3 students with one EA at one location. I'm wondering if there has ever been anything raised about potentially connecting like the Halton District School Board with an external agency, something like, Trillium Support Services, or something that provides support workers that could be connected with families to be able to provide students that might need one-on-one support for co-op opportunities, who then kind of, students who need one-on-one support might fall through the cracks or not be able to have placement at all in co-op opportunities, or have smaller opportunities around the high school and not necessarily like a co-op placement out in the community. Has there ever been discussion on connecting the parents with external resources to be able to provide one-on-one support for students?
So I'm happy to start the answer to that question, and then I'm going to ask Stacey to talk a little bit more about the types of co-op placements both in schools and in the community. So we do have a very extensive procedure around partnerships with community organizations, and so where we can partner that is compliant with our procedures and with our collective agreements, we definitely seek those opportunities. But we also, ensure that we have staff to support our students, whether it's in school or in community activities. So when we look at those opportunities, we look at the needs of the student and then how do we support that student in the environment. But Stacey, if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about CSC and ESC and what the co-op placements look like in those two environments.
Absolutely. So as part of accessibility, one of our, a big part of our stance in community pathways is independence or growth towards independence for life at 21. So that inevitably needs to include a very purposeful co-op program. So we have two sort of co-op programs that we have. So the CSC program is often our students who require significantly more support to be able to, complete the tasks and a little bit more supervision in a co-op opportunity. So we work very hard to create those opportunities within the school. And that looks very site specific, but that looks like different opportunities within the school. And that may extend to possibly, if the staffing it can ensure safety and whatnot in the partnership. It may extend a little bit outside of the school, but is often within school. And then we have ESC, or Employability Skills Certificate. And those are students that we work very hard to find co-op placements, or often a family will have a connection where their student is welcome to do a co-op. And it is very much about on-the-ground job experience with the idea of securing a co-op or an employment opportunity at 21. And those students often will have an EA who goes to start their co-op placement. Ideally, those students are often able to navigate the community to a degree. And so we fade towards independence. So often we start supported, but the goal after a couple of years in co-op is, are we able to fade some of that support and build independence, knowing that our stance is growth towards independence at 21. So we often have, for example, in Georgetown, we have very reliable partners who love having our students come and do co-op opportunities. And often the workplace is accessible for perhaps their physical needs or their cognitive needs. And then we can provide some EA support for that. Again, some students outgrow the need, which is amazing. We should all be working towards not having a job. Ideally, one day my job won't be necessary because we've done such a great job. And so that is sort of where we take it. Like, how do we grow these students? How do we help them grow towards independence for life at 21? Part of, and I know I'm sort of broken record here, part of our visible values work is to find better connections with community living and some other partners on what are the skills we are missing in secondary that we think our kids need, but we haven't really hit the mark. Or maybe we haven't been in the community in a long time, and so we need to be informed by those who are living with our students and working with our students when they are 21 and leave us. And so what does that look like so we can do some better programming? So that's sort of what our two co-op opportunities look like at the moment, plus our next steps under this work that we're doing right now that's tied to our school improvement planning in community pathways. Does that answer the question, or is there any more details someone would like?
No, that's
I love talking about our kids in community pathways and their opportunities. So ask any questions, because those kids are amazing, and our teachers do a lot of good things. So please ask away.
No, I think that answered my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Superintendent Goodup before we let him leave us? Seeing none, I'd just like to say thank you, Superintendent Goodup, for coming this evening. And if anyone thinks of any other questions after they've digested the information of it, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move now to item 2.2, which is the Special Education Plan Standard 10, Individual Education Plans. You may recall at our November SEAC meeting, Kate Lambacher provided a comprehensive overview of the standards. From that presentation, SEAC expressed an interest in spending more time reviewing, discussing, and providing feedback on Standard 10 specifically. Tonight, we'll go into small breakout rooms to open the discussion and provide feedback for consideration in the updated 2025-26 Special Education Plan. So I just ask everyone to please hold on while we move into breakout rooms.
Okay. Okay, sorry, we're having little technical issues with my computer. So thank you for that, and the time flew by in that breakout room, and I'm not sure that we were able to finish the conversation, but certainly something that we can bring back, perhaps with certain sections that we want to dive into. What we did talk about is how to support parents that are new in the process. And how do we engage with families to ensure that they understand the role of the IEP, and as well how do they what can they expect to gain from an IEP, and then what is their role as a parent in terms of providing input into that IEP. So that's kind of the big theme that we talked about. I don't know, Carol, if you want to touch on the main theme from your group.
Yeah, so just we did run out of time. I think we could have gone on a little bit longer, but as we wrapped up, we were speaking about student voice and the importance of including students not only in the development of the IEP, but throughout the process to make sure that students themselves understand the accommodations that have been put in place and to seek their input and partnership. And so I was just mentioning as we ended that at the boardroom table, we have had incredible participation and contributions from students via our student trustees who take questions and seek input at their table, which is the Student Senate. And so I'm wondering if this might be something that we'd like to discuss, perhaps. They have a long list of things, I think, that we've asked them to provide input on, but perhaps this is one area that we could speak to our student trustees about, maybe seeking a bit more student input and voice in the area of special education and IEPs. And the other thing that we touched on a little bit was just language and checking to make sure that we're using accessible language. And I think this is an extension of what you were speaking about as well. Ensuring that the term eduspeak or edubabble was used. Sometimes, from outside of the education sector, there's just language that isn't as familiar. And so I think societally we're trying to move in the direction of having more accessible language, converting documents into plain language and using the resources available to do that, to make sure the information that we're putting out there really is helpful and useful and accessible.
So can I ask, would we like to see this back on the agenda for further discussion in February? Yes? Okay, super, we'll do that.
Okay, so we're moving on. We rearranged things just a little bit. So we had done our discussion and question period, and we got to item 4.1, which is superintendent's report, and that's where we stopped in item 4. So we'll move into item 4.2, which is association reports. Please raise your hand if you have a report from your association that you wanted to share this evening. Okay, so seeing none for this evening, we'll move on to the trustees' report. And Trustee Zhang, if it's okay, I'll invite you to provide the trustees' report this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Tonight I have two items for the report and one reminder. So the first is about the budget public input. Education sectors are facing challenges and financial pressure because of the aging neighborhood, decline in student enrollment, and the slower growth of new development in Halton, leading the HDSB to budgeting 1.8 million deficit this year, and that must be eliminated next school year through a restrained budget development process. Focused on the cost containment and the balancing resources within funding limitations. HDSB hosted a public information session 2 days ago. The recording has been posted on the HDSB 2025-2026 budget input page, so you can find all the information on that page. The page also provides information about how school board is founded and how school board allocates resources. HDSB likes to hear the opinions from the public to help us optimize the resource allocation. A public input link is posted on the same page. The link will be available until February 9th at 4 p.m. The second is about the PIC conference in February. Parent Involvement Committee conference is scheduled for February 8th at L.C. McGill in Milton. It is a 4-day event, lots of workshops, so our participants can select to join. There are morning sessions and afternoon sessions. HDSB has sent 2 registration emails. If you like to transportation support, there are 4 locations you can take school buses. Hope that helps. And the last item I'd like to remind is French immersion enrollment deadline is January 31st. Also, the French immersion program form is due by the end of the month too. So don't miss the deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Shang. We'll move on to item 4.4, which is committee reports. I'll just go through the list of standing committees and ask for any updates from the SEAC representatives. I think we had a little bit of an overview of the Accessibility and Coordinating Committee from Superintendent Godet when he was with us. We continue to seek a member for this committee. As I mentioned, I serve on the committee as a trustee representative, and I think it's a really great place to understand how accessibility is approached in our board and how the various departments work together to ensure student services or student need is met. So as was mentioned before, if you have any interest or availability to serve on that committee, please reach out. As I said, the meetings have been set in advance, so we can share those dates with you and the times, and they will be primarily virtual with just the one in person each year. The Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Advisory Committee, Kate Lembacher, do you have an update from there?
No, and that's concerning to me because by now we'd already had a meeting and all of the meetings scheduled for the rest of the year. So I need to know if I can check in with someone about whether I've been dropped off the list. I've been on it the previous 2 years and I carried over to the next year, no problem. So I don't know, but there have not been any meetings. I've double checked my inbox. Nothing's been sent to me. So I'm a bit concerned that maybe I'm somehow not on the list. This year.
Thanks for flagging that, Kate. I'm going to ask Laura to maybe look into that tomorrow to reach out to the Student Wellbeing Department and confirm what the status is of those meetings and get back to you directly.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now at item 5, which is to open up the floor if there are any items that committee members would like added to an upcoming agenda. I think we've certainly decided that we'd like to continue looking at the special education standards for a special education plan, but if there's any other topics that anyone would be interested in adding to the agenda, please put that in the chat or raise your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Did we get the results or share the findings from our breakout on kind of the activities with SEAC and kind of involvement?
Yeah, great question. So we do have collated feedback from the 2 breakouts that we did around engagement with the members in a meeting. I wanted to wait for the new chair to join that conversation, so we'll put that on our next agenda setting meeting and then bring it back to the February meeting.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. So we are at item 6, which is adjournment of our meeting. Our agenda is exhausted. I'd like to thank everyone for being with us this evening in person. Sorry, go ahead, Kate.
Before we go, I got sent a cancellation for the February meeting, and I don't have it in my calendar anymore. I'm not sure why I got sent a cancellation, but I got in Outlook, I got sent canceled. And it's gone from my calendar. So I thought it was canceled and I was a bit confused about why it was canceled. It's obviously not. So I don't know why I got removed from February's meeting, but I currently don't have it.
That's very strange. Maybe that's with the same invites to the mental health committee meeting. That's really strange, Kate. I do have it in my calendar.
Only February's. I got sent a specific cancellation for February.
Yeah, weird. But Laura, if you wouldn't mind looking into that tomorrow as well and ensuring that the February meeting is in everyone's calendar. It's on February 19th. But we'll just ensure that that everyone's got that date in the invite.
Yeah, we'll do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for flagging that, Kate. Okay. So thank you, everyone. It was nice to see you in person and virtually, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone in February. Have a good evening.